It's 7 years today since the earthquake that killed 185 people in Christchurch. They were remembered at a service at the Canterbury Earthquake National Memorial beside the Avon River. The city's mayor, Leanne Dalzell, looked back to their loss and forward with what she called a sense of hope and aspiration. There are so many stories to tell about starting again after that terrible day, like the Garcia Knight family, who owned a restaurant in the Botanical Gardens, the curator's house. They'd strengthened the historic home the restaurant was in, so it survived the earthquake remarkably well. But it still needed a great deal of work before it could reopen after the quakes. Meanwhile, their son, who was 13 then, was working to become a world-class snowboarder. Yesterday, Carlos Garcia Knight qualified in first place for the big air snowboarding finals at the Winter Olympics in South Korea. And today, Javier and Jackie looked back to the earthquake 7 years ago today. They were in the restaurant, it was lunchtime, and it was very busy.
And I realised that it was an earthquake before it even hit.
And the sound first of the earthquake and then the house breaking down on top of us.
Yeah, you just didn't know how long it was going to go or how hard it was going to go, and that was the terrifying thing.
Oof. I remember really the violence of the shaking.
And just looking over at my husband, who was in the bar with glasses flying all around him and couldn't move. It was pretty horrific.
7 years ago today, their children were at school, although their son Carlos, who yesterday qualified in first position for the big air finals at the Winter Olympics, was 13 years old and on school camp. They couldn't get hold of each other. More on that shortly. But their restaurant in the Botanic Gardens was forced to close. It was a year and a half before it could reopen. So what does a business do that earns no money for 19 months?
That's a great question, because it's something you don't actually consider when you go into business. You know about business interruption insurance, and you pay it along with all your other insurances and hope you never need to use it or really understand what it is. So we had a business interruption insurance that lasted for 12 months, and we thought that that would be plenty of time to get up and going again. We had to make all of our staff redundant, apart from 3 of them that the insurance would cover their wages for 12 months. So after that, we were just left really waiting. We never knew if it was going. We would be told, oh, maybe it'll be opening next month, maybe it'll be opening in 3 weeks. Oh, if we do this, it'll be happening. So we were on tenterhooks that whole time, just waiting. So really it was just a waiting game, filling a lot of paperwork, meeting with insurers.
Month after month of it, waiting, filling out paperwork, meeting with the insurers. How many Cantabrians were doing that? At first determined to get up and start again ASAP, and then...
You have that resilience as a person. And then when you're getting bombarded one side with aftershocks and not knowing if it's going to be another big one, or if your children are going to be safe, or if it's doing more damage to your business, that's wearing you down emotionally. And then the fights with the insurance company just also wear down that resilience to that. You just get to that point that you're just down to the bone, and it's hard work. And it's taken a long time to recover from that. I think for everybody in Christchurch has been through it. We all know that feeling.
And of course, so many people had gone. The red zone, much of the CBD off limits. In the aftermath of the earthquakes, there were so few customers to rebuild with. We
count ourselves slightly fortunate in that we were closed for those 19 months because there was just no one in town. And those businesses that did open too early struggled. And so we were just on that cusp of people starting to come back into town. Tourism wasn't around. There were no hotels. So everybody was going to stay in Tekapo instead. So we've just slowly rebuilt the business until probably about a year ago. We were at the levels that we were pre-earthquake now. And this year it's flourishing. And we can see all the businesses reopening in Christchurch, all the office workers are coming back, the hotels are opening, and we've got tour groups coming in, independent travellers, and everything's back up again, and it feels good again, but it's been a hard, long few years to get there again. But we're counting our blessings and doing our best as we can at the moment.
And one of your blessings, he says, with the most clumsy segue in the history of radio, is that beautiful boy of yours who was on checkpoint last night.
Isn't he wonderful?
Oh, well, I thought he was wonderful because not only did he get a 97.5, not only did he finish number one in the field, but it just didn't seem to have gone to his head at all. He was...
oh, no.
He was just lovely, just relaxed. And
Thank you, John.
yeah, well, you can be very proud of him. But I wonder if he learnt some stuff about what matters and what doesn't from having spent his formative years in post-earthquake Christchurch.
Yeah, it was a challenge for him because he was going away a lot. I mean, he was out of Christchurch when the earthquake hit, and he was on school camp, and he had to try and find out what had happened, and he knew there'd been deaths in the city. And he was out away from cell phone coverage. He was trying to climb trees and everything to try and find out. And it wasn't until the next day that he came back to find out, if we were actually okay. So for Carlos, it was pretty scary. And then he, of course, was going away to Wanaka to do training, and then travelling overseas to spend months in the States to train. And it wasn't easy for him. He got quite anxious about being away and what was going to go on here. So I think he's developed some pretty good skills to deal with those emotions, and they've probably given him a lot more strength to carry through into anxious situations and competitions as well.
And yesterday it all gelled. Carlos Garcia Knight had a good first drop, but not good enough. The cut-off score for the final would end up being higher. But then he had number two.
We was expecting or hoping that Carlos do a better run than the first one, but I don't know if I was even in my wildest dream expecting such a huge mark and a huge performance from Carlos. We were proud of him well before all of this, and now I'm impressed, to be honest.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe when we saw the score come up. Just absolutely so excited for him. He's a great boy, and it's just so good to see him put down what he's able to do.
Yeah, and that's a lovely note to end on, and also your sense that Christchurch is doing the same thing. He says, segueing back to I think that's your sense of the city too, right?
Yes, I think so. I think we're all getting there. We're all getting where we want to be. Finally, after a long journey.
Jackie Garcia Knight.